I'm trying to think of
Yeah.
of an inanimate object that features prominently in the movie. But
It's female characters.
ooh, snap! Sad, but again, sad but true.
You ought to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be. Your voice.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is James, joined as ever by my friend Steve. This episode, we are doing the Chinese military blockbuster, Born to Fly.
If you haven't already subscribed, it'd be a great favor to us if you did. And just as a reminder, we do spoilers here, so you have been warned. James?
Okay, so Born to Fly, written and directed by Liu Shaoxi, his first movie as a writer-director. This is being touted and being sold to the world as China's answer to Top Gun Maverick, essentially. And it's kind of easy to see why. You know, that's a big breast-beating, jingoistic movie, and so is this. It doesn't quite have the budget, doesn't quite have the technological prowess behind it to accomplish some of the cinematic daring do that Tom Cruise and Tom Kaczynski, etc., manage in that movie. But it's definitely flying in the same direction. It stars up and coming big star Wang Yibo as Liu Ye, who is an accomplished pilot who is recruited into a sort of test pilot program to perfect a new stealth fighter jet. He's a little reluctant at first. He has aspirations to be on the front line and to get involved in dogfights with hostile forces. But he signs up and he finds himself a lot shoulder to shoulder with other hot-headed young flyboys with the same mission. He has a bit of a hobby, a bit of a sort of secret hobby where he is a bit of an engineer. He likes to doodle engines and make little toys. And wouldn't you know it, that comes into play as essentially this is less a movie about training pilots to be efficient aerial killers or anything like that, but rather it's a movie about the development of new technology.
Yeah, James, I'll come right out and say, by and large, I enjoyed this film. It's not without some flaws, which I'll highlight, and some things that I thought, some directions that I thought they should have gone in, and maybe some directions that they couldn't have gone in. But as the American, I get to be the one who those unnamed forces, surprisingly, you know what I thought was interesting was, I was just talking to my class recently about peace building, and whenever you do something, when somebody communicates something, the other person can be hearing a completely different message based on experience and history and whatever. And so when at the beginning of the film, when the Chinese jets are challenging the intruders into Chinese airspace, I've listened to some of these before on the news, because obviously America and China have been doing this more frequently. And China says, you are coming into Chinese airspace, please go in a different direction. We will defend our area. It's all very professional, and it's always responded very professional. This is the USS so-and-so. This is a freedom of navigation exercise. And these are international waters, and we will stay within international waters. And it's kind of professional. But I think what the Chinese side is hearing is what comes out in that movie. We'll fly wherever we want to fly.
We'll do whatever the hell we want, basically. And they say that not once, but twice in the movie.
Twice, yes, yeah. And so and I appreciate that. There is obviously a perception there. But by and large, the film then it deviates, as you said, going from a kind of a fighter pilot encounter movie to, and we've both said this subsequently off air, that the film, although it attempts to kind of be an answer to Top Gun, in many ways it has the DNA of an earlier American film, The Right Stuff.
Yeah, Philip Kaufman's 1983 film, The Right Stuff.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, that's about the Mercury mission. So that's essentially about NASA developing the first manned space vehicles, space rockets, to get a man into orbit before the Russians do. What it breaks down as is it's a bunch of pilots and a bunch of test pilots and other military guys in the desert risking their lives, flying prototype machinery and vehicles as fast as they possibly can, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes they die horribly, sometimes they succeed. And so rather than Top Gun, where it's all about, you know, being the best of the best and dogfighting and, you know, who's the best pilot, this is all about designing technology and pushing it until it achieves what you want it to achieve. And so I was like, I was getting real Right Stuff vibes from this one.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, what the Right Stuff was able to do was intersperse those basically when they're trying to winnow down to find who's the best of the best. And that's what they're doing in Born to Fly. They've got this big group of people and they're telling them, you know, there's going to be only this many after we've tested you with all of these crazy, you know, tests that, you know, test your mental capabilities, your physical capabilities. And it's very similar to the Right Stuff. But what the Right Stuff was able to do was able to bring in these comical elements into it. I mean, I remember when Dennis Quaid has to go and provide a sperm sample, and he has to go into the bathroom and he hears another guy next to him and he thinks it's John Glenn. And there's this whole humorous back and forth where John Glenn is kind of humming the Marine anthem, the U.S. Marine anthem, and Dennis Quaid is doing the Air Force anthem, and each one is kind of sorting themselves out. You know what's going on, and each one is crescendoing with their anthems higher and higher. It's unfortunate that Born to Fly, I don't think it will allow for that kind of element to be brought into this type of film. And because of it, all of these little tests that they have back and forth become very straightforward. Like you either passed, you didn't. He flamed out, he didn't. But it misses some of the more nuanced fun that you could have.
Yeah, I mean, because it's an element of sort of character development and you know, showing that they were sort of individuals and who came together. Here, you never really get the feeling that any of these pilots are sort of individuals or different from one another. They're all very much sort of cut from the same cloth already. They've all been through the military machine, through the system, if you like, and so they're just, you know, and the sad truth is it makes them somewhat expendable because they're not so sort of individually defined. It's like, well, if this one flames out or dies or whatever, it's all right. We've got many more. But from a storytelling point of view, it is unfortunately less interesting.
Well, exactly. They all have call signs similar to in Top Gun, but there doesn't seem to be any reason why a particular pilot has a particular call sign. Whereas in Top Gun, Maverick is Maverick because he bucks the system. He does flybys against the rules. You know, Top Gun Maverick, the new film, starts out with him basically overriding a general to test fly this plane, and he does a whole thing when they're commanding him to come down. He's like, oh, can't hear you, can't, you know, sorry, breaking up. He's a Maverick. He's going to bend the rules. He's going to break the rules, whether they're there or not. Iceman, you got Val Kilmer. This is an Iceman. This guy's got ice flowing in his veins, and the way he interacts with others, he is an Iceman. Then you got Goose.
It's how Goose he flies. It's ice cold, no mistakes.
That's right. That's right. He's like the best of the best, going up against Maverick, who's the best of the best. And then you've got Goose. And Goose, what is that? It's a big, awkward bird. And Goose is an awkward guy. He is the second in command, or not command, but he's in the second seat to Tom Cruise. And it conveys a certain individuality of him being a little awkward, a little geeky, and so you have these individual characters and their call signs reflect who they are by their nature. Whereas Born to Fly, like you said, you can have whatever call sign you want because it doesn't tell me anything about who you are.
Well, a lot of the call signs in Born to Fly are just numbers, if I remember.
Some were numbers and some were like eagle. And I don't know if it was a translation.
Lei Yu his was Shuker, but I don't know what that means exactly. And I think it was Hugh Jun or someone like that was called Eagle.
Eagle.
But others just had numbers. It was like my call sign is 083 or something. And it was like, you know, how impersonal can you get? You're just a number on a list. And I think that was very
Yeah,
telling.
and if you die on the desert, we'll just bring in 084.
Yeah, right. Or there'll be a new 083 later,
Yeah,
so there was a lot of that. The other thing that sort of, if we're talking about the characterizations, the other thing that kind of disappointed me slightly with the characterization was the female characters. I mean, mainly you've got Zhou Dongyu playing Tianran, who is sort of a medical officer. She's like an on-campus nurse kind of thing who like tends to their wounds. Right. Why can't we have some female pilots as well? What are we still at a stage where it seems like there aren't any women really in the military. They exist sort of on the peripheries of the military, where they're just, they're sort of nurses and they're on standby, and they're just there really as sort of as totems, emotional totems, in order to inspire the pilots to do better and to get home safely. Whereas they're not really contributing much to the cause directly themselves. And I thought, I thought that was a little bit disappointing, particularly because, and this gets me into another thing. There was a similar movie to this one, which was far worse, called Sky Hunter, which came out in 2017, and it had Fan Bingbing in it as she's sort of like and if I remember rightly, it was about kind of Fighter Pilot Academy. And it was about about becoming the best pilot, and she was in there as well, and she became like a helicopter pilot, and so at least she got to like fly helicopters around and show that the girls can do it too, kind of thing. And this movie was far more overtly sort of jingoistic, and the effects were way cheaper. It was a sloppier, shoddier put together movie, which was not nearly as subtle or accomplished in its messaging as this is. Yeah. And even this is still a little sort of heavy-handed. Even Top Gun is a little heavy-handed. It's very simplistic messaging. Yeah. But if a movie as bad as Sky Hunter, which came out, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago, even they can acknowledge, women can do this as well. Women can be one of the best of the best as well. By this stage, really, the girls are still just sort of nurses dabbing the brows of the brave young men. It was like it felt like a bit of a sort of a backward step to me.
Well, in principle, I agree with you, but maybe our listeners can answer this question, because I don't know it.
Our viewers,
our viewers. Are there female pilots that engage in combat? Because in 1987's the original Top Gun, there was no female pilots either, because there was no female pilots.
Right.
Women were not allowed to be in combat. That is a recent development in the United States and with some other countries. So I don't know what the status is in China. I don't know if there's female fighter pilots or female test pilots. And
but I'm going to go out on a limb.
I'm going
to go out on a limb and say, that's my point. There should be. They should have all the opportunities that the men do.
There was some really strong points in this film as well, James. And one of the things I enjoyed was Wang Yibo's characters. Like you kind of aforementioned, his fascination with little side engineering projects and how they got kind of incorporated into some of the test piloting tests that they would do. And it was fun to watch them have to, go into these barrel rolls where they lose control of their plane, or maybe an engine flames out and then they have to reignite it, and basically running through all these potential issues that could happen in real life, testing these planes to get the limits of their structural integrity and their performance. I found that fascinating to watch, like them really pushing it the envelope, just like in Right Stuff or Top Gun, and really taking these planes to the top of what they could actually perform as. That was fun.
Yeah, I think it was, and I think that's what drew me in and kept me engaged, is that these men were putting their lives on the line, and it was, to perfect something, and you were brought into the mechanisms of what it was. There's this sort of the parachute system and the use of 2 different kinds of jet rocket on the same plane, so that when they shot the missile, the jet stream from the missile didn't choke up the engines and things like that. And all of that, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess those would be like really sort of genuine issues that do need to be developed. It was just kind of disappointing purely from an audience point of view that there wasn't more kind of action, there wasn't more kind of dogfighting, because it opens with a dogfight and then it feels somewhat tacked on at the end. The kind of the very last 5 minutes of the movie, there's a little dogfight as well, and you're like, okay, all right, fine. I could have done with more than that. The other interesting thing I just want to point out very quickly in the cast is that the the chief engineer, the older bearded man, who is designing the engines, is a very well-known film director called Tian Shuangchuan, part of the fifth generation of Chinese filmmakers, alongside Zhang Yimou and other filmmakers like that are part of the fifth generation. And so it was interesting to see him pop up in this kind of little extended cameo, if you like, as sort of the engineer who Lei Yu ultimately helps in solving the problem. So that was fun.
Yeah. The ending when they had the birds hit the plane, I felt that they spent far too much time with that, and then not with the ending confrontation with the Americans, because I was looking at the timer on the film thinking, my gosh, they only got 5 more minutes. I know they got to fight the Americans again you just know how this film is going to go. You've bookended. You showed it at the beginning. You're going to have to chase the Americans away from
with your brand new better plane at the end.
That's it. You've got to do that. And to me, they kind of rushed it at the end. I'm thinking, I'm an American, and even I was kind of like, come on, I want to see some. I can appreciate, like you said, I come from America. We have a lot of jingoistic type films,
not least Top
Rambo, Top Gun, Rambo, Commando, anything Arnold Schwarzenegger. But again, what those films could do that I felt this film was not able to do was have those elements of humor that. I don't know if they're just not allowed, or they're what goalposts they have to navigate this type of film through, that it can be distributed.
Yeah, it was like being allowed to have a sort of an anti-authoritarian loose cannon as your protagonist, and him able to stay a loose cannon, a maverick, if you like. And yet still remain the hero, and still remain in the good graces, albeit barely, of the authority. I think that's sort of the difference, is that it's somehow part of. I'm not American, but it seems to me as an avid viewer of American movies as well, that's kind of the ideal American hero, if you like, is being able to walk that tightrope of being fun, being your own man, having a respect for authority, but also testing the bounds of authority and questioning authority when when you feel justified that it's not doing the right thing, or in the best interests of everybody else. And it's finding that balance is where the true hero stands. Whereas I don't get the same feeling of of these films, whereas you have to be, like the big hero might start out that way, but has to really sort of toe the line by the end, or be more of a poster boy for recruitment.
You're not going to have the main protagonist in this type of film kind of disobeying orders, being told you must do this, and him going, I follow my own orders, and then going off and doing it, and then getting drilled at the end. I ought to drum you out of the military, but you saved everybody again, so we're going to have to leave you in. I mean, that is kind of the trope of every American jingoistic film from the 80s. Is basically you're given a rule, you break the rule, you end up saving everybody because you broke the rule, and then having to grudgingly keep you on and even promote you sometimes, because even though you broke all the rules, you saved everybody and you used that good old American initiative to do it. I don't know if there's the same allowances would be made for this.
It's almost like at the end that it's the general or the authority figure or whomever almost has to concede that the rule was stupid. That you breaking the rule was the right thing to do, and it's like, okay, which is it's so generic, it's so part of the storytelling of sort of an American type of movie like this, that you're like, well, that's the hero's journey, is to almost prove to his superiors that his way is better.
Whereas in this film, it's almost, you can have a differing opinion with the authorities that be, but you have to convince them within a certain parameter to come over to your side. You can't just adios, I'm doing my own thing. That's going to be a no-no.
The parameters are far tighter, it seems.
You know what they were missing too is the shirts off beach volleyball scene. Where was that? Come on. It was missing this slow-mo twirling football. Basically we're going to show everybody how cool these guys are, not just in a plane, but outside the plane too. These guys are, not only are they the best of the best here, but they're the best of the best there. And you don't get that in element. I mean, obviously I'm being a little facetious, but really there's that element where everything is only in the military here. Whereas even coming back to The Right Stuff, you had these guys being the best of the best in their military situation, and then they'd be partying hard, they'd be doing something crazy over here, and I'm going to be crazy and pushing the envelope here, and I'm going to be crazy and pushing the envelope there. And again, the parameters for this film doesn't allow for that kind of leeway.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that it's kind of will allow, if you like, is a little bit of harmless flirtation. You know, a little bit of a sort of romantic subplot, and that's about it.
Yeah. So.
I mean, I suppose the only other thing I want to talk about is the aerial sequences themselves, because I thought they were by and large done quite well. I mean, there were some clunky moments where it was obviously sort of CGI, like planes coming into land, which kind of just looked a little bit crude. But other than that, I was sort of struggling to identify what was CGI, what was actual real aerial photography, particularly because there's so much support by all of the different military departments in the production of this movie. I've seen some comments online saying that it's all CGI, and that might be true. And if that is the case, then I would say that a lot of it is well done, because it had me questioning. I don't know what's real photography and what isn't. And if some of it is real photography, it looks great, and if it's CGI, it still looks great.
Yeah, no, I concur. I just thought the same thing. I thought, wow, this is really a fun movie to watch. And I wasn't quite sure at times what was CGI. There was a few moments like yourself where I thought, I don't think a plane can do that. And it was obviously CGI. But by and large, I was quite happy with this film. It's CGI, it's aerial combat. I think with what they were able to do with the budget they had was wonderful. This is a well-made film, and I enjoyed it. Well, James, what are we going to use as an instrument of measurement for Born to Fly? How many paper model airplanes?
Do they make paper model airplanes?
What there wasn't paper, was
he makes it. There's a little metal one that he makes for the girl and gives to her, and then it falls off and breaks.
It breaks. That's right. It breaks.
I would love one of those on my mantelpiece. All right. Well, I thought that I went in knowing that this was China's answer to Top Gun, if you like. I'd seen Sky Hunter a few years ago, which scarred me deeply. It was a terrible movie, and I was fearing the worst. And so actually, I was pleasantly surprised by just how entertaining, engaging, and palatable this was. How it didn't have sort of anti-West sentiment shoved down my throat, like can happen sometimes in these movies. And and it was technically proficient, and the characters were good, and I was entertained. By and large. So I'm going to give it a nice rock solid 3 model airplanes out of 5.
I'm tacking right with you. I thought Wang Yibo did a really good job. He conveyed good emotion within some of the parameters he had to work within that we'd mentioned earlier. I thought he did a good job with what he had. And I enjoyed watching this movie. I love the aerial combat scenes. I love the fact that they kind of went in the test pilot direction rather than just try to recreate Top Gun. It was creative, it was innovative, and I enjoyed it as well. I'm gonna give the same. I give it 3 romantically made model airplanes out of 5. Go see this film. Like I've always said, if I give it 3 or higher, I'm really recommending you go see it. Go see it, you'll enjoy it.
Excellent.
Hey, but that's what James and I think about Born to Fly. What do you think about it? Feel free to leave a comment in the comment box below. James?
That's right. I mean, and where do we go from here? I mean, I've seen some of the huge sort of military epics, Battle of Lake Changjin and that kind of thing, the stuff that Dante Lam does. But how about other films similar to this? If I like this but didn't like Sky Hunter, where else can we go? Where can we see other examples of this, or other terrible ones? Which are some of the worst ones? Let us know which ones to avoid as well. Which ones get it completely wrong. Which Chinese military movies try to rip off other movies and do a terrible job of it. Let's look at some of those as well. Please let us know.
Till next episode.
Bye-bye.
You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be. You're